Good, good. You look good, man.
Thank you, man. Everything is good with you?
Everything is swimming along. Apologies for my tardiness again here. I was in another call with a new support group for magicians who are trying to do more with magic.
Yeah.
It's called Magic on Purpose. And today was my first introduction to this group of performers, and I didn't know it was going to go as long as it did, but it was worth every minute. Like, super inspiring stuff. Everybody there shares our motivation, you know, a little bit of service and trying to use our tools for good.
Yeah. How did you hear about it?
A friend of mine who I keep checking in regularly with, also a magician I met a few years ago who uses magic as a tool, not as the end game. And he said, "Yo, I should connect you with this group I'm a part of," and it happened today.
Wow.
I think I've talked about this in the past, and it's going to sound a little slanderous, but I don't have a lot of magician friends. People who, and that's not, it's not true to say that magicians or any type of people is a bad group of people, right? That's just bad form. But there's a lot of ego in magic conversations, maybe more than in other conversations, because you're trying to, you know, you're doing stuff that not a lot of people know how to do, or have practiced to be able to do. And so there's a sense of like pride that comes out when magicians start chatting, and sometimes it can feel like a competition always.
Mm-hmm.
But over the years, I found my people. I found the magicians that I really, you know, love, and the theme of the last conversation sort of was like, this is a loving support group. And the conversation starts from love. It's not from ego. So
interesting. Yeah,
really a great way to start my Friday, start my weekend. I'm all amped up and ready to work, and it's good.
I hear you. Tell me what's one aha that you got from that meeting that you could share. I mean, I know there's probably was many, but what is an aha? I think one of the cool things about these kind of conversations is to be able to give people glimpses of rooms they were not able to be in. And so I think that would be cool to hear that.
I took a few notes. One is that maybe just the reminder that magic is powerful, and because it's powerful, it's real. I come back to it again and again, but it's, you know, the evidence from listening to these other magicians talk about their stories and what they're using magic to create is more evidence that there's real power when we use our tools for good. One of the magicians had to leave early, but he said, you know, when I got stuck and I had a conversation with Andrew, the organizer, and I came home, and I just, after this conversation, I wrote down something on a sticky note.
Mm-hmm.
And he held up the sticky note to the camera, and it said, "I'm on to something, ... And I wrote that down because that is maybe the single most motivating feeling that I've had in the last year. And then maybe through the course of my life, I still knew I need to process it, but that feeling of being onto something is such a driving force in any choice of mine. Anything like this, for example, we started this, and we're in the beginning, we're like, we're onto something here.
Right.
You know, and I've never, just that simple phrase, when I start creating or writing something, it's like, oh, I don't know what it is yet, but I'm onto something. It's here.
Yeah.
And I thought, what a cool, just a little note to write to yourself, and what a phrase that's really powerful. So I'm going to start looking for that now. I'm going to start looking for that feeling of when I'm onto something, and noticing what it does for my energy and my motivation.
I'm so glad you shared that. And before we go any further and dive into it, I've noticed one of the biggest things as we've been doing this is we've never invited people to subscribe and comment. So what happens is we get so many viewers, and we're so grateful for viewers, but then we also realize maybe we having so much fun talking to each other, we forgot that we actually want to talk to you guys too. So please, if you're watching this, subscribe so that you're aware of when a new episode comes up. And also please comment, let us know what are the ahas that you got as well. Maybe you were able to see it from an angle that we did not talk about that can kind of further our learning. If there's anything that you would like for us to address, please drop that in the comments as well. We do this not only because we have fun, but because we hope that you will join into the fun as well. But just wanted to make sure I took a note of that, and I was like, dang, what are subscribers? And then I started to look back at the videos that I've watched on YouTube, and I've noticed there must be a reason every single one keeps on saying hit subscribe. It must work, right? Totally. And I was like, well, let me go and model what has been working for years for a lot of the YouTube creators. Try to leverage that myself. So please, guys, we're an open book here, but definitely subscribe and comment. Let us know what you guys are thinking, what hit you, what ahas you got. But I think what you shared about the whole I'm onto something is so interesting, because I feel like that is exactly kind of what we're doing here. But at the same time, how reassuring it is, because the opposite of it, and I think unfortunately a lot of people feel like I have nothing. So they kind of feel stuck. They feel like I'm not going anywhere. And it's like, but what if the place that you are now is a moving platform?
Yeah.
And it's taking you somewhere, and it just requires us to be present, to be like, oh snap, I am onto something. And then just sitting on there and really looking for it. Like, I think we miss, I think one of the gems in my book, that's the other thing, is when you write 52 gems, it's a lot harder to remember all of them.
I'd be impressed if you did, though. I'd be impressed if you did.
I keep a few in my back pocket. But one of the things I said is that you never find, you will always miss what you're not looking for. And so when you think about, like, I'm looking for, what am I on to? It really just is like your brain is so amazing and loyal in filling in blanks. But we got to give it the blanks. So if you say, what am I on to? The brain goes, well, let me go find the answer. It's not like, it's literally like going on Google and typing in a search result, something you're searching for, you find it, as long as you have connection, like you got your Wi-Fi working. But it's that idea of it. When you said that, I'm like, oh snap. And that feeling. And I want to talk about more of that, because I think the emotional side of things is what connects us, right? We may be connected to different things, but the emotion of want, desire, achievement, whatever the case, the feeling accomplished, is such a big thing. So when we talk about the emotion of I'm on to something, you said that, man, I'm so excited, I'm revved up, like going into the weekend. It sounded like you were, it's interesting because your energy sounded like you were going into a Monday, but we're going into a weekend.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like, this is normally when people are trying to wind down, and it sounds like you just went through an experience and have been charged up to want to wind up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What is that emotionally, if you could put that into words?
It's a great question. As you're talking, I'm thinking, this is a tool, when I'm stuck, to say, use the magic spell, use the words and say, no, I'm not stuck. I'm onto something. I just don't know what it is. It's the feeling of anticipation wrapped up in mystery. It's like, I know there's a great big surprise. In magic, sometimes, I don't remember who coined this term, so if there are any magicians watching, comment and tell me who said it. Yeah. One of the things that makes magic so enjoyable is the expected surprise, which is a bit of an oxymoron, right? You're going to be surprised. How can you know is it a surprise if you know it's going to happen? But it is often a surprise not in the way you expect it, but you know it's going to be there.
Right.
And even if you don't know exactly what it's going to look like. And I feel like there's this is the feeling. It's like, I know I'm creating something and I don't know what it looks like. I can't predict what it will be. I couldn't even attempt to describe necessarily the motivations or the problems I'm attempting to solve, but just that feeling of being on a track is exciting and motivating. For the about Mondays, I love the weekends because I don't schedule calls or anything where I'm committed to somebody else on the weekends typically.
Yeah.
Just in my personal life, yes, in my relationships, but not work related.
Right.
So my weekends are often the open creative days where I can spend a few hours writing and I don't have to worry about what my next appointment is, kind of thing. So I really get amped up about especially creative projects on the weekends. Yeah.
I heard there's a coach, a mentor that I'm studying now, and he talks about how he wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning just to have what you describe you get on a weekend. Mm. And as I'm listening to you say that, I'm like, well, he has found a way to get quote unquote weekends daily.
Brilliant.
Waking up a few hours before the world wakes up. So the temptation of 4 o'clock in the morning, no one's really posting something on social media. So when I hit refresh, I see the same thing. So I don't get this dopamine rush and then I leave it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So I think that's the interesting thing when you said that idea of the weekends and kind of being able to disconnect and stuff of that nature. I think that's super powerful. One of the things that I do want to stress on is when you said I'm onto something, and then I felt like there was two worlds. There was I'm onto something and there's I'm stuck. And when we're stuck, what do we normally want to do?
Get unstuck.
Right. And so you like, when I'm stuck, I'm like, I want to break free.
Yeah.
So we run away. But when I'm onto something, that instead of running away, I'm planting my feet even deeper. You know, and so I think that idea of like, I can't help but think of how many people were onto something but thought they were stuck and they left the very thing that actually was going to free them.
What a thought, man. That's really great. That's the great tragedy of human creation, human innovation, is that most people quit too soon, right? Most people jump off the train when it hasn't even left the station because they feel like they can't see where it's going, or their one attempt at solving the problem didn't work out. So, well, if I can't solve it after one try, I have no chance of solving whatever that inner story is.
Yeah.
But like, and we talk about this a bunch, right? We're so focused on the products that we don't see all the attempts of failing that are necessary. It's not like they're possible. It's that they're necessary. You have to have all of the terrible ideas in order to learn what will actually work.
Yeah.
Occasionally you get it right the first time. Rarely, blue moon. And then the rest of the time you have to trust that the work will lead you there. So that phrase as a tool, I'm onto something. I don't know it yet. I don't know what it is, but I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to quit. I'm in it.
Yeah. Whew. It's an amazing tool. I think it's so crazy. I am onto something. Yeah, it's not, and I think it doesn't require a big thing, right? It's 4 words that opens. Yeah, I had to count myself. It's 4 words that opens up the door.
Yeah.
You know, to possibilities, which we talk about ad nauseum, right? Like we talk about that all the time, like possibilities.
Yeah.
And so I think that idea of it, and again, if you're watching this, that's an example of one. Figure out what your phrase is that opens you up. We're in a world now where we're so closed, right? And I'm reading a book now called Resonate. That was referred to me by a person in this group I'm in, and it's by a lady named Alex Wolf, and she talks about how so many people are in zombie states. Right? Like, just kind of going through the motions. I'm really not alive. Barely here. And then you tap into like, you're looking for a reason to be alive.
Yeah.
Or evidence that you are alive. Right? And these moments, we when we get it, we don't understand it, nor can we explain it, and nor do we care.
Right.
It's like, why are you so excited? I don't know, and I don't care. I'm just so happy. Like, I literally had that moment it was an hour ago, as I was thinking and just brainstorming and just hanging out, just kind of like jazzing, like hanging out in the studio, playing some music, but no one cares what I'm playing.
Yeah.
And I started to think about, and one of the things, as you know, I teach people how to like self-publish books and stuff of that nature. And I started thinking, like, where are the people who like books? Like, where do they hang out? And then the other idea was like, where do a lot of them hang out and all read the same book? So I'm just going to ask you that question, just to test it out a little bit.
Sure.
Where do people read books in more than one person, like in a large number of people, reading books, and are also reading the same book at the same time?
Yeah, like a book club.
There you go. You got it right on the first try.
Yeah.
Good. This works.
I'm thinking of Oprah. That's my mind went to Oprah's book club. Yeah.
And so as I was thinking about that, beloved, I was like, oh, hold on. Book clubs have a bunch of people reading books. So I don't have to convince them to read. They already like doing it.
Yeah.
And they're all reading the same book. So now, as an author, how cool would it be to have someone reading my book for a club, knowing that I am automatically selling multiple copies of my book at once? So I got so excited about it. I created 3 videos on it. I didn't care about production. I didn't care about lights. I said, and even in the video, I'm saying, I don't even have time. Like, I didn't have this shirt on. I had an undershirt, and I said, I don't have time to put on a shirt. I need to get this out because it's that amazing. And I think that feeling, if I could put it in a bottle and take a drink of it, I'd drink it all day.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I'll worry. They're like, but you can't be on that energy all day. I'd rather deal with that problem. If you're telling me that you are too alive, I want that problem.
Right.
But the idea of alive, man, and just doing something that wakes you up. And I think about how many people say, well, when I have time, I'll do it, beloved. You said you got that craft that you want to work on. I'll do it when I have time. And I started to break my heart and say, like, but how do you find time to give 40 to 60 hours of your life every week to a job? But you tell me you can't make time for the thing that makes you come alive?
Yeah. Totally.
We're telling ourselves lies.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. And for what? Like, what's the fear that prevents people from making the time? Like, it really is it's just a mental barrier somehow, right? And I can only assume it's fear-based. Either fear that you will attempt something and it won't go as well as you hope. Like you have an ideal for whatever it is, and it just you don't quite get it on the first round,
right?
Or third or 10th or 20th or whatever. Like that, I can see that being a fear. But also I think the fear of success. Like, what does it mean if you carve out time for yourself and you achieve it? What does that mean for the rest of your life in the past where you haven't carved out time? Like, where did you sell yourself short? I know I deal with that. If I'm successful here, have I wasted the rest of my time? That's a thought that I sometimes try to ward off.
Yeah.
But then also, what does it mean? What comes with success? How does your life change? What are the things you have to give up more so as you continue to find success in whatever this venture is? It's like, it's a scary new place, and familiar is comfortable.
That's the part right there. And I remember I did a workshop one day, and I was having people list out the fears. And then the 7th fear someone said was the fear of success.
Mm.
And I, as the host of this workshop, was so confused.
Mm.
I was like, I don't understand. Like, you're telling me you're fearful of the thing you desire.
Yeah.
And then as we started talking about it, she started to talk about all the changes that accompany that success.
Mm.
This new identity that I now have to continuously become. And the new friends that I would have to have, and the old friends that I would have to give up, or the friends that would judge me for being this new creature, right?
Mm.
Creature or whatever. And I think when I think of that whole idea, like you just said, the fear of success is there's so much, it gives breeds to the fear of the unknown.
Mm.
Like, I don't know how long can I be successful
Mm-hmm.
in this space.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when I become successful. You start thinking about all the things, all the possibilities of what can go wrong.
Yeah.
Well, what if I become a millionaire and then somebody goes and a financial advisor takes advantage of me and takes all my money and I end up broke like this celebrity? And I'm like, yeah, that happened to someone. But that's the first place you went when you thought of your success. And it's so crazy how when we start to talk these things out loud, we could start to realize our habits, how our experiences have helped shape us, how possibly risk averse you might be. When you're like, hey, I don't want that. And I've had that happen to me. We've all been guilty of this. Where I'm like, I don't know if I don't want to be like, if I'm the book guy, does that mean that I'm not the motivational speaker anymore? Right. And then I'm like, I don't want to not be the motivational speaker. So now I start kicking and screaming.
Right.
And I get upset about the fact that I'm losing this and not noticing all the things I'm gaining. And as I started to realize, back to what you said earlier, the 4 words, that I'm onto something, I started to realize that everything I thought I was losing was embedded in the thing that I was gaining. I'm still motivating.
Right.
Everybody's like, wow, you're so inspirational. And I'm like, I am. Like, what do you mean? Like, I'm the book guy. And they're like, no, but you're the book guy who's inspiring. Uh-huh. And I'm like, so I could still be inspirational? And they're like, yeah, you are. And that's the power of, like, I don't even know that I'm doing it.
Right. Right. Yeah.
It almost looks like magic. Like, literally, they're like, oh my gosh, like, how did you do that? And I'm like, do what?
Right.
Like that. And I'm like, well, tell me what I did, because I don't know I did it.
Uh-huh. That's like one of the problems of being, I think, a teacher is of anything is, in order to teach, you have to hold two perspectives simultaneously. You have to be in the place of wisdom and in the place of not knowing, in the place of the student, because you can't connect the wisdom to the student's experience without being able to put yourself there and remember what it's like to not have the wisdom you have now. So, like you say, to be inspirational, it's just your normal. It's like your mode of operating is at this level now. And a lot of people's mode of operating is at this level. And so when they get to interact with you being just you, they see, oh my gosh, there's that place to go. But you might not even recognize that you were in a place that was different, because I experience this all the time. Like, I always make the assumption that everybody knows everything I do and more, right? Everybody's already felt everything I'm feeling. It's such a dumb assumption, but I catch myself constantly making it. And you forget that I've got lived experience, like tons of stuff that would be valuable for somebody else to at least listen to. Yeah, what a great thought. And I love that you mentioned how, as like, this is I had this magic support group now, which is great. But us chatting,
yeah,
we've talked about, it's the conversations we get to be a part of that define our thoughts and define where we see possibilities. And this has been therapeutic for me in lots of different ways, just having a regular check-in. But also, as we talk about these things, we're like pulling thoughts from my brain. I'm realizing, I'm having moments here where I'm like, I know that thought, right? That we're talking about fear of success and how it's going to change you. And I'm like, I know it's in my head, but for me to talk about it out loud right now I see it as for what it is.
Yeah.
Right now I have a sounding board. Now it's there's a place that I can ground from and look at it and go, that's not what I want in my head.
Yeah.
Whereas when it's just bouncing around in my head, I can't even grasp it. I don't know. I have nothing to compare it to because it's my normal.
Yeah.
You know? So how powerful is it that we get to talk about this stuff? And then I'm seeing my own shortcomings because of I haven't talked about them with anybody else before. I haven't put this out, you know?
No,
Great stuff, man. This is I I only hope that people who watch, I can't imagine that people watch this. First of all, that's another thing. I'm like, like that's so great. I'm so grateful, and I feel I just feel lucky to have the chance for all of this. And if anybody watching this gets even a fraction of the value that I get from our conversations, then like this, there's so much gold. So.
And I've had people who have messaged me privately and said, hey, I tune in weekly, right? And
so great.
And the reality is, and I want people to just notice this, that just because there isn't a comment doesn't mean there's not a viewer, right? And so this person's never commented, nor are they a subscriber, right?
Right.
So if you know who I'm talking about, you subscribe and you comment, right? But the idea of like, oh well, I don't see the results, and I'm like, but don't lose sight of why you did it. And It wasn't just, I didn't do it for vanity metrics, right? We did it like we saw views and was like, oh snap, we got views, but we're still like, whether the views came or not was going to show up because there was value already there. And so I don't want people to miss that part of like, listen, there's value in what you're doing, just do it, right? Like just continue to show up, continue to show out, and you'll be surprised of the value you're providing. And this person was just telling me like, I didn't know, I forgot what episode it was, but they were just sharing with me like, there's something you said that gave me permission to think something different. And to me, I can't imagine in a world now where we're, with racial tensions and all these different things, and we're talking about privilege, we're talking about access and all these things, that someone can say that something that you said in the conversation you had amongst each other gave me a signal that says permission granted. And as a result of that, they now have access to something that previously, prior to watching, they didn't know that they had.
Chills. Chills. It's so subtle, right? It doesn't have to be significant. That reminds me of when I was in high school, A Beautiful Mind. I don't know if you've seen that film with Russell Crowe.
I wish. I've heard it so many times. I have to watch it. Like I've heard too many great things about it.
It's an excellent movie. I may have won some awards. It was certainly nominated for some, and it was big when I was in high school. It had just come out, and it was the talk of some people. And there's a scene in the film. I'm gonna boggle this, but he is this young academic. He's trying to figure out his thesis. He's trying to carve his path. He wants to build his legacy. And he witnesses another retiring professor. He's in the library trying to figure this out, and there's a little reception happening as this other professor retires. And one by one, his colleagues go over and they put a pen in front of him as like a symbol of respect. And in the world of academia, here's my tool. I'm laying my sword at your feet, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he kind of wants this. He feels this urge. And we were talking about this with a friend. I don't even know if it's from the movie or if it's just my friend's interpretation at the time. But he said, I loved that scene so much because immediately I wanted the pens, whatever that is for me. I wanted that recognition. But it occurred to me that recognition doesn't come first. The accomplishment is why we should do the things. The recognition will be there or not, but it shouldn't matter. It's like, and you say vanity. What did you say? Vanity metrics. Whew, yeah. Whew, that's good. It's good language too. Like, yeah, we're not doing this we literally have no specific purpose or mission for these conversations other than to jam ideas and share energy. I'm like, yeah, that's the accomplishment is putting it up, is continuing to chat. If people like it, great. But one person hears something and they give themselves permission to access something they didn't before. Okay, work done.
Yeah, it could stop there, and it goes back to it's an expected surprise, as you said earlier, right? These things really just come so full circle because it's just it's surprising, right? It's surprising for someone to say, "Hey, when did you start doing a YouTube thing?" Like I have people message me, I didn't even know you were on YouTube, and I'm like, I didn't know I was going to be on it. To be honest, I can't tell you, and it's important to plan, but it's also is important to leave room for something to be put on the plan, on the agenda.
Yeah.
If you fill your whole schedule up, no one can fit anything in. And I heard one person, I don't know if I've shared this with you before, was talking about how, and this was a preacher who was saying this as he was preaching about communication. And he said that I never come to a sermon with it 100% completed, because if the Spirit leads me to say something else, there won't be any room. So he always comes with 75% done so that there's 25% for the expected surprise.
Whew.
Right? So you come in like, hey, I know exactly what everything is going to happen. It's like, well, then you might miss the magical moment was not planned.
Yeah.
So now it's like when you talk about making magic, and I think that's the part of it that becomes challenging, is that we want practices and principles, but the production of those things, like you just said, doesn't come first, right? So it's like the order of operations.
Yeah.
Right. And you start doing and you're like, why did I get this problem wrong? Like I knew 9 times 3 is 27. It's like, yeah, but you forgot that you're supposed to do the exponents first. And so you didn't do the exponents first and you did the multiplication, you got the answer wrong.
Yeah.
Like it had nothing to do with your ability to do math. It had everything to do with the order in which you did it.
Totally. As you're talking, I'm thinking of another idea that's been pretty significant. I know I've mentioned complexity thinking and complexity theory in our conversations before. And one of the principles of complexity theory is emergence, which is the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That's another way of saying it. Where 1 + 1 does not equal 2. 1 + 1 equals more than 2 or 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Right. And it's because we know that in complexity, the things are sensitive. You set up some initial condition and then boom, a bunch of other things interact with that condition and it takes you to some outcome you couldn't have imagined. This is where we get the thing like a butterfly flaps its wings over Hawaii and creates a tsunami in Japan. Right? Like that's some little insignificant thing can have an enormously disproportionate effect. And so what we're doing, I think, and what we're talking about a lot of the time is like, what are those initial conditions? What's the one that you can set up and do right now that are going to create more, like your preaching friend, your pastor, and 75% has the pieces and then expects that something else will emerge and make space for that, knowing that it will happen. Right. And like, yes, that's where magic lives. Yeah. It's in this like emergent property of, you and I talking on our own. We could do it this way. Like in conversations, there's emergence, right? You could individually record some of your thoughts and I could individually record some of my thoughts and we could paste them together side by side, call it a YouTube video. But something happens in the relationship between our words that is greater than either you nor or my own thoughts.
That's a good point.
And it all connects, right? It's all come full circle, because that's all conversations are. And it's about being the conversations that we carve out and make for ourselves are the things that define how we think and how we see the world and how we see ourselves and other people. Like
100%. 100%.
So cool. What are you, we talk a lot about theory and philosophy and ideas and stuff, but what are you working on? It's now 2021. Things are, the world is on fire, and things are changing rapidly. There's so much going on. What are you working on?
Honestly, right now I'm working on furthering the family of my first book done course.
Okay.
One of the things that I've realized in the past is not honoring the some things that I'm on, if I'm honest.
Sure.
And so what I've done, and it's taken a lot of energy, is closing off things that I could do so I can do something very, very well. And so for me, that's been my main focus, is thinking about the big web, the big funnel that I'm creating to allow and invite and attract people to come into this world to experience the new life that can come from being an author that is writing something that is both impactful and could actually impact your income. Yeah. And so that's been my number one focus. So I've literally have shut down everything from how to become a speaker more and stuff to this is what I do, this is who I am, and this is who I will be for the first quarter of the year. And so that's been it. It's been it's been scary because my brain has been a motivational speaker for so long that when I see an opportunity to do motivational speaking, it's like my brain runs to it immediately. It doesn't even think. It's like, oh, you can do this. And then I've had to discipline myself to say, don't do that. Say no. And I'm like, why would I say no to that? And sorry, I wrote this down before we came on, and I wrote the word no small, but then I put the equal sign to a big yes.
Huh. Nice.
I don't realize how that small no is opening up the door to that big yes. And so that's my commitment for this year, is to I put on this shirt, and you probably can't see it, but it has the word
nice
focus on it, that a gentleman gave me a t-shirt. And I realized that that's who I need to be. I've been Rambo for so long and I need to become a sniper. And in the sniper and the Rambo, the difference is the sniper is calculated, and what they're doing is more time consuming. Rambo is random and fast. And what I've learned, what I'm trying, this is an experiment that I'm doing with myself, is I'm saying, Geo, just try to be sniper for 3 months and let's see what happens. We know what Rambo can do. Let's see what sniper Geo can do. And so that's what I've been working on. So I've been working on things like writing special reports, like the 5 mistakes that people make when they're writing a book. And nice. I'm on to it now. I just noticed I'm at 3,700 words for that. And it's probably going to be upward of 6,000 words when I'm done. Wow. And I start thinking about, well, why the heck are you doing this for a guide that people will download for free? Like this is almost a book in itself. Right. But then I realized, how badly do I want to create the moments that was able to happen? I had a gentleman yesterday, I interviewed him, and this is something I would never do in the past because I would be doing so many other things, but now I have space to have a long conversation with the people that I was already serving to see how big of an impact has this had in your life. And I asked them, can you talk to me about what your life looked like before the program? And he said, my life has changed so much. I asked myself that very same question of what was my life prior to. And then I started thinking about how much of an impact I wanted to make, and realizing he just said my life changed.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me, he admittedly said, he said, this is his exact verbatim words. I don't know how you're going to feel about what I'm about to say, but I want to let you know that I feel as if I know that I have severely underpaid you for what I have gotten out of the experience.
Wow.
And so I'm gonna go and put it. I should send him a text with a picture that says "wanted" because he's robbing me. But, but what I've noticed is that as amazing as that feeling was, if I stay on the something, I can create that for more than just that person.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm working on putting together resources to attract people who are looking to have that same experience.
I love that. That's really great. You're touching on, I think, the bigger reason why somebody would write a book. Like,
yeah,
you know, I've heard some people say everybody's got a book in them.
What do you think about that?
I agree with it. I think it's true, but I always, you know, I think a lot of people struggle with the idea, like, well, who wants to read my book? Like, whatever it is, why should anything I say in the world matter to anybody else?
Yeah.
Whether it's a story, whether it's a fiction, whatever it is. But yeah, I think you're touching on something which is like, and maybe I can't speak on your participants' experience, but I can speculate on my own experience that writing a book is so much more about my own development than it was about anybody who was going to read anything.
Wow.
It didn't start that way, but it became that.
Yeah.
And it's transformational to see what you can do when you give yourself permission, time, energy, focus to do it.
Yeah.
And again, maybe that's not where your participant's experience was rooted. But I mean, if you can say to people, hey, you may not think you need to write a book right now, but I bet you're looking for some way to transform yourself. And I'm going to tell you that the way to do it is to write a book, and I can show you how. I'll walk you through that
that's
process.
Crazy. This is why I love having these conversations, because it now opens up a you know, when people say in business, they talk about, you know, what's your unique selling proposition? What's your USP? What's your as Seth Godin calls, your purple cow? Mm-hmm. Right? And never did I think, until we just had this conversation, and even the conversation I had yesterday, that this is a personal development program.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're like, this person has told me, Geo, he was writing a dissertation while doing my program.
Yeah.
He said that he became a doctor in August. People were going crazy. His family, oh my gosh, you're a doctor. But when he became an author, the reaction was 10 times being a doctor. And he was like, he said, Geo, I met you in July. I was an author in November.
It's amazing.
Becoming a doctor took my whole life.
Right, yeah.
And in 4 months, I did something with you that people are looking at me and saying, oh my gosh, now, and this is why it's so important to have conversations, because in the conversation I had with him, he had a desire at some point to be a speaker. Like, he wants to be a professional speaker, educator. He's an educator by trade. And he shared with me, and I'm sure you've experienced this as a speaker as well, the whole idea of cold emailing, cold calling, and all these things that we have to do to let people know that we exist. And he said, Geo, you know what's so crazy? I have people cold calling me. And I was like, what? And he was like, no, like, there are strangers contacting me. And I get to be, instead of me trying to figure out how to navigate the gatekeepers, I am the gatekeeper now. And I was like, bro, like, I said, do you understand what you just said? And I had to write it down. And yeah. I'm so glad we recorded the conversation that we had yesterday, because it's so much bigger than just a marketing tactic. Yeah. It's so much bigger than authority, personal brand, and credibility. Like, it has the ability to change your life. Yeah. Like, books have turned into movies. because of that, the book, there's a show on Netflix called Bridgerton, I think it's called.
I've seen it. I haven't seen it, but I've seen it pop
Yeah,
up.
you've heard about it. So it was previously a book that was then converted into a Netflix series.
Wow.
And so when we think about this idea of what you just said about 1 + 1 = more than 2, my question is, what's the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that's missing because you didn't do 1 + 1?
Right. Big question. Yeah, big question. I think there's a universal benefit. Joel, the other speaker at NSLC, my buddy, we talk a bunch about, when we teach people to speak, or when we talk about public speaking, whatever, we say it doesn't matter what your topic is. People won't care until there's some universality in the message. Right. And then when people see the universality, the specifics of what you're talking about become infinitely more important. So, I might not care about running, and I don't, but if, here's a better example. I despised country music for most of my life. Okay. Country Western music just all sounded the same to me. I didn't get it. And I more than not getting it, I can't understand how hundreds of thousands of millions of people support the development of this music. No offense to any country music fans or creators out there right now. I said to my cousin, who's a country music fan, and we see eye to eye on lots of stuff, but not on this. And I said, like, okay, I got it. Like, just tell me why. I got into it with him one day. What is it about this music that's so appealing to you? And he said, it's not about the music so much as it is about the lyrics. It's about the story being told. It feels like such a personal experience that's being shared with me. And that's way more universal than twanging on a guitar.
Right.
And I thought, I care about that. Yeah. So I went back and I listened to a country song. I turned it on a station. I typically, when I listen to music, I'm not always with the lyrics. So I tend to be with the musicality of the song or the beat, but the lyrics often can go in one ear and out the other, or become part of the beat. So I listened with the focus on what that artist was saying, and had tears in my eyes by the end of the song because it was so beautiful.
Wow.
And now I care more about country music, right? Because that universality was there. The running example, someone runs a marathon, I don't care about that. But if they say, no, really, this is about overcoming the physical limitations that I've set for myself, or like my mental limitations about my physicality.
Right.
Like I care about that.
Yeah.
Right. Seeing David Blaine stand on, we've talked about this, seeing him do his stunts where he, it's just endurance. He's standing on a post for 36 hours. I don't care about that. Why would anybody do that? Until he tells me the universal message, which is really, no, this is about, persevering through that little voice, which says you should quit, you should give up.
Right.
That's universal. I know that voice. Suddenly I care a ton about that stunt. So I think you've touched on, or you're discovering what's the universal value of writing a book, so that anybody who doesn't necessarily see themselves as being an author, or even have that desire to share a story, suddenly now they go, wait, but I do want to become the best version of myself. I do want to feel a sense of accomplishment. I do want to push through the hurdles and see what I'm really made of. Like, dude, I want to write a book.
That's huge. Like,
yeah.
and it's something I'm gonna really just sit on even today, and I'm glad we having this conversation because it helps it to double down on it. Is understanding that, like, it's like it because then it goes beyond the vanity metrics again.
100%.
Right now, it's not about, like, hey, I want to be a bestseller, and I said, okay, well, what if I told you that I can guarantee to make you a bestseller, but nobody's life would be changed from what you said?
Right.
And they'll be like, well, why would I want that? And then I say, well, didn't you say that's what you wanted? Like, what do you want more then?
Yeah.
The bestseller or the thing? And then they're like, well, I want the bestseller, but not at the price of not impacting somebody.
Right.
Then I say, well, then let's go and focus on impacting somebody, and then the bestseller part, will let that take care of itself.
Love it.
And then it's like, oh wow, and it's like, yes, that's what I'm looking for. And so I think that's the part of it where, and I'm glad you said the running example, because there are people who they have a look when you look at them, and you could point at them and say, you have no business running. Don't do that to yourself.
Right.
Your knees don't deserve that type of abuse. Go on a bike. No one needs to see you run a marathon.
Right.
But then when you start to understand, what does it mean? And what you said, I need to know that I have the capacity to do something that I thought was not possible, so that I can also know all the things that's possible. And so running is the vehicle that I've decided to use to do that. And for somebody else, it could be writing a book. For some, so the thing is, that could be interchangeable, but the universal side of it is, I want to live life without a limit.
Yeah. I
want to know what else is out there. I want to know and be introduced. I want to meet more. I heard more is out there. I want to meet more. If more is a person, I want to be introduced to you. And I think a lot of people would have that shared desire.
I think we're on to something.
Listen, man, I know we always try to keep this an hour. We're right under it. But before we go, I do want to also give you the opportunity, because I want to hear what you've been working on. Like, I know we're in the 2020-21 year now. What are you diving your foot into?
I briefly, I also have to run for another call, but I am teaching. I'm back in the classroom at McMaster University. I haven't started yet. I start next Thursday with a lecture. Okay. 300 students, introduction to business. I'm terrified, which is exciting. I haven't had the fear or the nerves for a new project in a while. So it tells me I'm in a good place, I think.
Yeah.
And I've been tinkering a lot with a bunch of different projects, writing and consulting and making online content for other organizations. But I got a few things I'm working on for me, including a theatrical performance. Again, I want to just do it because I really enjoy performing magic. I haven't done it for people in so long. And I think there's I don't know if you have iTunes, there's a show called In and of Itself by a magician. No, it's a movie by a guy named Derek Delgadio. He's a magician. The show started as
what is it called?
In and of Itself. It's available in the iTunes store, at least for us Canadians. You might have to dig a little. Derek Delgadio, Delgaudio. He did a show. It was off Broadway. It started at the Gethin Playhouse in Los Angeles, and then he got a running show off Broadway. I saw it twice. I saw it in LA. I saw it off Broadway. The single greatest use of magic and performance I've ever seen. Incredibly powerful, life-altering show, and vulnerable and authentic. And he tells a lot of his story. And the whole premise of the show is, well, who are we? And he says, it's a combination of who you think you are and who other people think you are, and none of those at the same time. And it is this like really beautiful artistic expression or perspective on identity. And anyway, I just recently watched it again over the holidays. It became available in movie form, has the same impact on me. And I've had this urge to write a show that magic supports. Magic isn't the focus. Magic supports the story. And so I'm working on that.
Nah, that's dope, man. Send me the link. I want to see if what that looks like. I think that would be an amazing thing to dive into. I think identity is such a big thing for everyone.
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy it, knowing our chats here.
Absolutely, man. Well, have a great weekend. I already know you're gonna be busy. Enjoy yourself, man. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks, my man. See you
All
next
right.
time.
All right.